Hello everyone, this is Herbert Strather, and thank you so much for taking this webinar. I'm going to show you how to succeed in getting control of the property that you want to finance, joint venture, or otherwise pull out cash and own all or some of it. But the very first thing you have to do is get control of the property, and that's what we're going to go through now. Getting control of the property that allows you to make money. Now, typically speaking, would a seller sign a purchase agreement for $80,000 or $100,000 and they're going to get $50,000 net cash out? I want to ask you, what would you say to such a seller? They would probably say to you, well, you know, if it's worth $80,000 or $100,000, why am I selling it for $50,000? Now, that's a rational question. So what I'm going to do is show you and give you the answer. So let's take and get started on our road to getting control of the real estate. So success, everyone, is right around the corner. We got to get started, and the way you get started is, first of all, you want to do a self-assessment of yourself. You have what it takes. If a little kid like me can make it from Herbert Street, I guarantee you can make it. You got to set goals. So you have a self-assessment workbook and you have a goal-setting workbook. I want you to spend a little quality time and fill it out. Make an appointment with yourself and set aside a few hours to get this done, not while you're just roaming around. Remember, we have 60,000 thoughts a day going through our head, and a goal is not a goal unless it's in writing and you have made it happen. In other words, it's just some thoughts that we have. So we're going to get started now, and the first thing is finding and underwriting the property. And traditionally, you know, you need cash, credit, or collateral in order to buy real estate. That is traditionally what you need. But you know, when I was coming up, I didn't have either. I didn't have any credit, I didn't have any cash, and I didn't have any collateral. But today, we can make these things happen as I did before. You just need a computer, a cell phone, and a car. Now, when I was coming up, there was no computer and no cell phone. Let's get that straight. But there was a phone and there was a car. Today we have some more modern tools and we have internet and all those wonderful things. But beyond everything, you need a commitment, a burning desire, because if you possess a burning desire, you're going to make it, because you're not going to let obstacles stop you. No matter what they are, you'll get there. If your car ain't running, you got a bike. You'll use your bike. And if you don't have a bike, you got shoes. You'll walk around your neighborhood and get all the vacant properties and find what you want and make it happen. So a burning desire is what you're going to need. Now let's start with the art of blitzing. Now what I mean by blitzing is finding properties, principally properties that are off the market, properties that have equity in it, to find the properties. Now there's a lot of online blitzing, I got it. And as you notice, you can do LoopNet, there's Realcom, there's Zillow, sheriff sales, for sale by owner, bank REOs, networking. But the key to all of this is off-market properties. Now, sheriff sales, if I can state, are off-the-market properties because they appear in the legal news, and there's a whole new set of them all the time, and that's a great, great, great place to start. A great place to blitz is the legal news, or riding up and down the street and finding the properties before they're listed, because once they're listed on MLS, well, everybody know about them then, and it also hinder your ability to structure the kind of transaction I'm fixed to show you, to make your eyeballs pop out, where you can take and leverage real estate 120%. So the key is getting off-market properties. Now, just we could check out some of the websites that you need when you find these properties. You go up and down the street and you find a property. Now there's LandGrid. LandGrid now should be over the United States. There's Yellow Pages. You can find owners in Yellow Pages. Fast People Search is absolutely fabulous. I like that. They seem to be the most accurate. There's Database, your local assessor's office and the building and safety department. The county resources is very, very important. And the state resources. In Michigan is Laura. LARA. If you go there and you can look up an entity, then you can pull the document itself. You can do an entity search. You can pull the document and you can see who signed that document. Sometimes there's the phone number, but at least you got a name and an address, and you could go to Fast People Search and you can find that person. So these are some of the resources from the city, the county, the state, but of course you would have to look it up in the state that you live in, if it's not Michigan, or the county that you live in. So let's see, when you find a deal, you got to what we call underwrite that deal. And what is underwriting about? Well, here's what it's about. First, you got to physically eyeball the property. Now, we're going to use an example of a 4-flat today, because a 4-flat is an income property and is also residential. It has a residential value. It's a little tricky, you know, but instead of starting you off with a 30 unit like I very well can, and maybe I should, because I started with a 20 unit, but I want to start you with a 4 unit because many of you can buy a 4 unit, and especially if you do not own a home yet and you want to buy a real estate parcel or income producing property, it is probably the very, very best thing to buy because you can finance at 96.5% by using FHA, or many of the specialty projects financing models that the lenders have is maybe even 3%. Now, let's go back here and make sure we got it. So we're going to take and look at the property. Then who pays the rent? You want to determine who pays the heat. That is a tremendous question, because heat runs about $1 per square foot a year. You want to see what is the condition of the property. How much money are you going to have to put into the property once you buy it? But get this straight. When you buy a property, you want a fixed up budget to put all the money in right then and fix the property up. Now, cash flow, the property is valued based on the net operating income or the cash flow. Let's say the net operating income is multiplied by 10 to 12 times. That means it's either a 10% cap rate of return or 8% rate of return. So if you take excess dollars and put in for fix-up while you're running the property, that lowers your property value. Put all the money in up front. That's what you want to do. Now you want to see what the unit mix is. How many 2 bedrooms? What are those rents? Are those rents below the market? That's very important if it is. You want to check out the property taxes, the tenants and the title. This is huge. You got to get a physical copy of the property tax bill. The worst thing you can do is to have a property that you purchase and you're all excited about, and all of a sudden the taxes jump. And you say, oh my God. A lot of people may not have considered that, and some people have gotten hurt, and I hope you're not one of them. If you pull the tax bill, it will tell you what the taxable value of the property is. It will also tell you what the uncapped value or the assessed value. That means is when you buy it, that assessed value is you're going to deal with the assessed value unless before you buy it, you go to the assessor's office and you sit down with that assessor with a discussion about the property, and you arrive at a valuation then. And if the rents are lower, that's a much better time to arrive at the valuation than after you buy it. And don't forget, in Michigan anyway, once the property values are set, as determined by the assessor, they can only increase it 5% a year. Remember, that's good. But check out your own county and your own state. What other rules? Can they just increase it at any amount at any time? Is it a fixed amount they can only increase it? So you want to get the comparable rents and the sale prices that properties have sold for. Now, the real estate agents, if you're talking, you can go on Realcom and you can get it very, very easy. It shouldn't be that hard. You could also go on LandGrid. They will tell you the last price that property sold for. There's Zillow is a great place, although Zillow could be a great friend because they could lag and they can help you sell a deal, especially if they list the value as low. So be careful about Zillow. You want to use them when it's to your advantage. You want to consider what the highest and the best use is. Some of my students have purchased properties and they've leased them to the foster care aging out program, or the prisoner release program, or the veterans, or the homeless. You get a per diem that's much higher than maybe normal rents. Or even Section 8. If you live in southeastern Michigan, the most important site is gosection8.com. Gosection8.com. Of course, if you could get a higher rent, that will increase the value of the property. But be careful on that too, because if someone is getting a very high rent and you want to buy it, and they want to sell it to you based on that rent they're getting at a normal cap rate, it's a sucker deal. The reason being is that if you lose that tenant, then the property will substantially depreciate, and you may have a real issue. And most banks and appraisers are not going to evaluate the property greater than what they consider as the area market value, as or the rents, the market rents. That's what I want to say here. You want to buy it based on the market rents, but you would like to enhance the cash flow through special uses. And then you may want to check out the seller too. You know, the seller is important. Check the seller out. Check out the court filings. That is extremely important. And you can go on public record in Southeast Michigan, it's 36th District Court. If you know the seller's name, you can very well go in and find out, have there been court filings. That's not a very, very difficult thing to do. So let us go. Let's run the numbers. Before you run numbers, first, you got to determine what you want to accomplish. Are you buying this property as for an acquisition to hold? Do you want to take cash out of this property at closing? Do you want to leverage it, or do you want cash flow? Now, if you provide the maximum leverage, that means you borrow the maximum amount that you can convince an appraiser to appraise the property and the lender to lend, then you may have a very small cash flow, especially in the area of a 4-unit, for the simple reason that 4-unit leans high and heavy on what the residential values are, and the income approach is secondary because it's still a residential property, but you get a little mix of both. It's a little tricky. If a 4-flat is in an area with very high residential values, you maybe can leverage it and end up using 100% of what those current rents are, which means you have to increase it later. But what do you want to do? You want to pull cash, or you want to buy it low and flip it? Then there's another performer that we have, and that performer is really for a flipping performer. And those of you who join me, and you go to Student Corner and you pull up the resources we have under performer, there's a tab for flipping. But today we're dealing with a performer for income property that you can keep and hold and acquire. And if you want to wholesale, that's the same as flipping. You know, you're not going to put any money in it. You're not going to spend as much money. You're going to buy it and find a buyer just like it is. And that's a smart move often. Okay, then you want to determine what your acquisition approach is. Do you have somebody that's going to joint venture the deal with you? Like if you found a great deal and you brought it to me, we could structure together. I'd be happy to use my balance sheet to help you acquire the property if you're a student of mine, for sure. And if I know you, relationships are very, very important. And I like to get to know the people that I invest with. But you may have your parents, your relatives, or your best friend, or a business partner, or a colleague, someone that have a balance sheet. You don't have to have the balance sheet. You have to have the skills to be able to structure the transaction and offer them an attractive proposition. Does that make sense? So determine the acquisition approach. Is it going to be a gift sale? Now, a gift sale approach, we're going to get into the details of a gift sale, but a gift sale, look it up, Internal Revenue Code 170. That's your homework. Look up what a gift sale is. And it is part gift and it's part donation. You need to form a 501c3 to do such a thing. And by the way, we could help you do that. Don't spend a lot of money. We could get it done for under $500, and you could get it in 3 weeks. Now, a joint venture, that's joint venture with someone that do have the credit, the balance sheet, and you got the skills. Uh, you might contribute the purchase agreement. They contribute their financial strength, and you all joint venture the project. Now, let's say that your credit is challenged, and you're concerned about being a part of the joint venture because there's a credit issue. And if you own 20% or more of the project, don't forget, you've got to sign the note. But let's say that you do not want to sign the note, or you are not quite ready to sign the note, then you can do what we call a participating promissory note. Now, we're going to get into great details on these things in the future, but you can essentially have a note on the property, and it's not on the real estate. It is secured by an assignment of the membership interest in the LLC. The lender doesn't necessarily know about it, and they don't necessarily care about it. But you could split the cash flow. It may be a 50-50, a 30-70 cash flow, and the cash flow can be from all sources all the way up through resale. So you really essentially own some of the property because you get the economic benefits from the day it's purchased to the day that it's sold. And you don't have to pay any taxes unless you get a distributable cash flow. There may be a 401 you're going to use. In that case, you may be paying cash for it, or you may be you may be loaning a colleague or a joint venture partner the money under a note, and they facilitate the transaction. And you got to check with your 401 provider how much you can do, because you can't bump heads. But some of the 401 providers allows you to joint venture as long as there's arm's length agreements and a very specific position. But you can joint venture your 401k with someone. Mortgage, are you just going to put a mortgage on it and buy it straight out with a mortgage? That's possible. Now, there's 10 ways to do this, and that's pretty specific, how to do it, and there's great details. What we want to do is to show you how to take control of the property first. So now let's run the numbers. When you get ready to run the numbers, you may run 3 sets of numbers. You may really run the numbers yourself to see what those operating expenses are. For example, you may put in 8% management fee. You might put a 10% vacancy and collection fee in. Well, it depends how challenging it is. You think it's going to be for you to collect the rent. It may be 5% or it may run 10%. But for the purposes of financing with the bank, you might use 5% anyway because it increased the net operating income. In a case like that, you know that you're not going to make a big cash flow, but you want to borrow enough money to buy it, to do the rehab without putting up any cash. And you could live with not making cash flow for the first year. Hardly ever do you make cash flow if you're going to finance 110 and 120% of the development, because you're using that cash flow and you're leveraging as much as you possibly can. So don't try to do it all. Take out a whole bunch of cash, make a whole bunch of money, because something is going to suffer. And what you don't want to suffer is the maintenance of that property. And when you buy it, fix it up from the proceeds up front. That is key for a lot of different reasons. So you may run it with your hat on it. That's the realistic, you look at it. Now you may put your banker's hat on. How is your bank going to look at this property? And how are they going to look at this structure you have? Because don't forget, the bank requires equity. Now, if you did a joint venture and you each contributed to a third LLC, you contribute the property, they contribute the services, and you each split that, then that's possible. It's possible you can do it, but there's another way to do it, and we're going to go through that. That's going to build it right into the purchase agreement. So when you take control of that property, your equity is built in. Now, buckle up. Now, let's get into running the performer. This is how a performer will look, and the performer is part of your package. You can just bring it up. So what we have here, we have to just fill this out now, and then it's going to tell you everything that you need. So let's start from the top. The capitalization rate, that's the rate of return that you want. Let's just say the rate of return is 10% to make it easy. Now that may range from anywhere from 5 to 10%. If you're listening to me and you're in Florida or California or New York, you're closer to 5. Somewhere around the mid-United States, it may be running around 8. But in Detroit, Certain areas are 5 because they're on fire, like downtown, but the neighborhoods have tremendous value, and you can really get a 10% rate of return. And that's a wonderful thing when financing rates are much lower. So 10%, let's put 4 units here. I've kind of had this filled out already. Vacancy and collections, let's make it a 7%. That would make a lot of sense. Now this column G really tells you really what you can do and type in. Just follow the instructions. So your insurance cost per unit, we're saying it's $600 per unit. Here it's $300 for apartments, $1,000 for houses. This is a 4 flat, 600 is a good number. Your maintenance cost is running $500 a unit. I better make it 600 because our column here says 600, and that's about right. It usually runs close to what 1 month's rent is. So that could even be a little bit more, but it depends. I would say to you from 500 to 700 is your range. Management fee, 5%, 6%. It all depends. But if you're making this for the lender, then you want to make it probably as low as possible. The water and the sewer, we have at 500 a unit, which is reasonable. The gas, it depends on whether it is separately metered or 1 meter. Now, if it's 1 meter, then you can figure the gas to run $1 a square foot. So you would type in 700 there, if that's 700 square feet. If it's 800, $1 per square feet in Detroit. You could check and see what it is in your area. You can get an estimate, an average, a budget of what a particular building would cost. You can get that from the utility companies. The electric per unit usually run about $125, unless, of course, there is no common area electrical. In other words, on a 4 flat, you might very well have the lights in the hallway that's over each unit tied to that unit's meter. That's possible. But normally you have some common area, like the basement, if there's a basement. Now, if there's no basement, the laundry room is in the individual units, and it's very possible there's absolutely 100% no electric whatsoever if that's the case. So, cap replacement at 200 a unit is good number if the project is in good shape, and it should be, because even if it's in tough shape, you're going to bring it up to par. 3% is the operating expense growth. That's a reasonable amount of growth each year. The mortgage rates right now is, let's say it's 4.5. 360 months, that leaves a first constant of 6.08%. Now that's pretty cool, a 6% debt constant. That's the principal and the interest combined, expressed as a percent. It's 4.5% interest, but when you add the principal on over 30 years, it's 1.5 more, 1.53, 1.58 more. So you add that on to 4.5 and you got 6.08. That 1.58 is the principal payments that you're making. You add that to your interest payment and you got the debt constant. Secondary debt, no. Well, now let's look at this and say it's 96.5. Let's see if it's a regular FHA deal. Well, let's use that for now. So let's just say you look at this and you realize that the rents are under, they're charging $650. Give me a number. Say they're charging $675. But you realize the rate should be really $800. Say $850, because they're low. Okay. Now you got something, because you got this serious appreciation in value. Now, so at $675, it's $32,000 a year. At $850, it's $40. That's a tremendous difference in valuation. So here you got year 1, year 2. Now, you may not get to the 40 in year 2. So you may want to change this and say market, at market, at market, at market. Okay. Other income is like laundry income, late fees. If you have a 4 flat and you have a laundry facility 1 in the building, then you certainly will put in 3.5%. But how about if you don't? I would be a little careful And you can change this now. Here I have 2.5%. We could keep it at 2.5. Let's just make it, let's say that they're individual laundry facilities. So we make this 1%, and that means that everybody pay you, but you may lose a little money. Now, you may make a little money. Excuse me, not lose a little. You make a little bit for maybe a few late fees or something miscellaneous. But it's really late fees and laundry income. So these two add together, that's your gross income, your vacancy factor, which is a product of, right here, you had 7%. So that is automatically calculates. So you got $30,000 as your effective gross income. Now this property tax, you get this off the property tax bill, and as we discussed, you need to know, is it going to be uncapped? What is it going to be going for? It runs usually around 30%. It lags a little bit, but let's say this is $2,500. This adjusts at 5% automatically. Everything adjusts 3% mostly, but the property taxes do go up a little bit higher. We have 2,400 here. We have 3%. It's 2,462. That's property insurance under maintenance. It's 2,400 to 600 a unit, as you recall. Payroll and taxes, you really don't have that much. But let's say if you gave somebody $100 a month to keep the show shovel, but typically payroll and taxes is 10 to 15% of the gross. But what is it? Maybe you're going to do it. Now don't forget, you're going to live here too. Now, I put in 4 rents, not 3. So that's assuming you're going to pay rent too. But we understand that you're not going to pay yourself. But assuming for the purposes of this, we want to show you what a 4-unit looks like, okay? We want to show you what the 4-unit looks like, but we also want to finance at 96.5% because you could buy it FHA. You could live into it a few years and move out. Now you got you a 4-unit that was leveraged to pull cash out. I'm going to show you how to buy it without having to put up cash. And then once you live in it, you have to live in it. Now you must, there's no option. Now, I guess if your kid is around, you can make them live in it. You know, if you want to you want to get them out of the house, get them a 4-flat or help them get one. How's that? So let's go over this now. Your property management fee, we got at 5%. Your water is a couple $1,000. That's $400 per unit per year. Your gas is 0. Your electric is $125 because we're assuming that there's common area. And don't forget that laundry income burns up a lot of electrical. Don't forget that. And while we're at it, how many hot water tanks is it? If it's 4 hot water tanks, and usually in most 4-flats it is, you're in good shape. But if it's only 1 hot water tank, then you got to put money up there. And if it's 1 hot water tank, you're going to put up $250 a unit. That would be a $1,000 difference. So it's very important. Your normal capital improvements is $200 a unit. That's $800. So you got legal, administrative, marketing, other. You got $1,382. So you got $16,612 a year. Now, me, see this little 612. I like to round numbers off. You don't have to do this. But if I wanted to make it 16,005, I'll take the 112 and add it here. So I take 212. Now, that's probably true, but let's see, there could be some sense behind it. 211, I don't want to get in that, but 211.65, how's that? Oops. 211.65. There we go, 16,005. That's pretty cool. We'll just leave it like that. You don't have to round it off. It's a little thing I like to do. I like to kind of round the numbers off. And if I'm going to do it, I'll do it here too. Okay. So first of all, if you do it on the other, zero out others so you know what you're rounding off. 23, so I'm rounding off $315. See if there's any sense in there. 315, what is it, you all? Tell me now, 315.268. Okay, that's 23,005. That's pretty cool. Let's just say that's the number. So I got 2 even little round numbers. Look, your most important number, now determine your price to seller. So let's go down here. This helps it. We know that market value at closing based on the cap rate is either 165 to 235. So the seller, say if the seller, you know, you can argue the point, you know, it's 165. So you know, the seller says, okay, they'll make the deal. Now let me tell you, this is a very important point here. And we can go back to our magic number on our, the magic question. Let's just figure it out first. You got 165, and say if you're going to give the seller the 165, but it's worth 235. So let's put this at 215. You got to get an appraiser to go along with this, but the good news is the appraiser normally goes along with the market rents, not the current rents, the market rents. So here you got a great shot. Although you're buying it from the homeowner based on current rents, you're going to take and finance it based on market rate rents. That's pretty cool. Now, there's a little play in negotiations in there, and some lenders will give more buyers more leeway than they will others. So at the end of the day, this 215 and this is going to equal together. So you know the seller wants their 165. Let's just give it to them because you have a magic question for them. Now you have closing costs. The closing costs may run 6%. I have 10 grand flat. But let's just put it in here. Those of you who know Excel say plus 0.06 times the sales price. So say if 12,900 is the closing cost. That's fair enough. Now, your retail repairs, you can essentially make the seller responsible for the repairs, but the seller can give you the credit, or better yet, a contractor. Not the seller's contractor necessarily. It could be your contractor. It could be your cousin. You know what I mean? And you and your cousin can work on it together, and yes, you can keep the profits. You're entitled to make profits. So let's just say, at the end of the day, this is 215. So you know that you need a little money in here. If we zeroed this out, we know it's 192. So let's take this here, sales price to 225, make it better. This is 235. So now you got 194, 250. So at 225, I got 230 and 750. So I got 30,750. I believe that'll give me what I want. Let's see if I can add. 225, that's wonderful. So look at this. The 165, you get no credit to that because that's the seller's. The 13.5, you get the full 13.5. So you have $30,000 worth of repairs, but more than likely you're going to do it for half that amount. So let's just say you get 15,000. You do your own painting. You do your own work. You and your cousin. And your fees, this is brokerage for a guy like me. Let's say that you don't get any credit for that because I sold it to you or you sold it to yourself. Now, wait a minute, though. I am talking, we'll do it two ways. Let's do it where you are. Let's do it if you're not the broker for starting off, because you may have to share some of it with your agent. You may be an agent, may have to share some with your broker. So let's just say plus this amount times 0.70. See if the broker give you 70%. So you get 11,000. You got almost 40,000 credit. So what do you need? You got a $217,000 mortgage, right? So your down payment, your closing costs is 13.5. Now the reason that I'm only putting this is the mortgage. You got 3.5% down. You got 6% closing costs, which is 13.5. When we took it to 225, that 6% pushed this number from 12.9 to 13.5. So it's 21,000 you need, but how much you got? You got 39,000. 39,000. That means you pull out $18,000. Now, are you going to go broke? Let's just go over this again first. It says you get 18. So it's 217. It's what your mortgage is. You're paying the seller 165, right? 15,750 is your renovation. Your closing is 13,005, and there's 194,000. Now, we have to put the professional fees in here, and the professional fees is the difference here. You get 30% of the 15. The The professional fees, you have to pay the broker the difference. So I would say you can add it up separately, or I'll say plus 0.3, that's 30% time this number if you recall. Where is the commission? There we go. Because don't forget, you're getting 70%, your broker's getting 30. Hope this is not too complicated. It should be 18,150. 18,150. 18,150 is what you get out. 18,150. Now, let me talk to you about this. The question is, who in the world is going to take and sign a purchase agreement for 165 and you have 225? Well, here's the argument. The question is, give them something they can't say no to, Herb. So, hi, I'm Herb Strather, or whoever you are when you're meeting with the seller. First, disarm the seller. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and let's talk about what we're going to do. The first thing we want to be able to do is to disarm the seller. Presentation, establish the right relationship. Get a green light first. Disarm them, that's establishing a relationship. Hey, don't we know each other? You know, oh, you have a beautiful house. Or talk about the property. You got a really nice property. I'm sure you're very, very proud of it. In Detroit, our argument is relatively easy. You know, these property values are worth a lot more, you know, psychologically depressed. The appraisers won't give us our value. You know, so what we try to do as brokers here, we try to lift the property values up, because every time there's a sale, you know, then it gets recorded and that compounds the problem. So what we've been trying to do is get the value as high as that we can. So we like to include improvements, closing costs, everything inside possible so that we can push the value up. So after we close, we're gonna, I mean, if we bought something for 100 grand and we put 20,000 in to fix it, our real cost is 120. So why not put that 120 in? And if we got closing costs of 10, put that in there. So the real question, Mr. Seller, I'm asking you a question. Do you care how we do this deal, as long as I get you your number? That's the magic question. Practice it. Mr. Seller, do you care how I do this deal, as long as I get you your number? You could give them some preliminary discussion and a rationale. It makes sense what you're talking about. And no matter what the appraisal come back for, I just get a credit for that, and we're going to record the deed under this number. Now, there's going to be some small costs like your tax, your state tax transfer tax may be a little bit more, or your title insurance policy may cost a little bit more, and I'll do that. I'll pay that more and give you even a little bit more to make sure that you don't lose any money. And you're not going to have to pay taxes on it, because it's going to be based on this closing statement at the end of the day of the cash you got out. That's all you have to really pay taxes on. So the answer to the question is always yes. Now, sometimes the sellers say, well, why? I mean, in other words, you know, you're asking me, do I care? You know, there's almost as if they smell a rat, or they want to know what, you know, some of them may question you about it, and you talk about the rationale. I like to talk about it before, and then I give them and they say, yeah, I know what you mean. And so you don't care how we do this. Do you care how we do this deal, as long as I get you your money? And by that time, they're ready to say, no, I don't care as long as I get my money, man. Just give me my money what I want. I want 165. So that's the story. The thing they cannot say no to, and to give them the rationale. So, okay, here you go, and you just break it down. Here's the 165, we're putting this in. Now look, the appraisal may not come back for 235. Now we got 225, we understand. That's if the appraisal came back for 200, that's okay. The appraisal can come back for 200, but we're still gonna make it 225. I just get a credit for the 225, because the bank is only gonna make the loan based on the appraisal, Mr. Seller. Now you know that you can take this, and you hope that you can convince the appraiser whom you're going to meet, because you're going to have a professional presentation to them. You're going to lay out the cap rate, how you arrive at it. It's an equity rate, it's a debt rate, and you're going to lay this out, and you're going to give it to the appraiser, and you're going to get the comps, and you're going to go there. You're going to have a whole package, and our appraiser don't want you giving them comps, but the appraiser will take a survey, the description, so information on the property, and they'll take some comps in there. And you can ask them, I got a little package here. It includes some comps and stuff. Would you like to see this? Oh, yeah, I'll take it. But they just want to make sure that they'll take it, but they're not going to be, quote, influenced by it. We got that part. So, everyone, it's just really wonderful talking to you. This is the step one. Now, there's some things we have to get into. How does the purchase agreement look? Because the purchase agreement got to coincide with this discussion. And there's what you call a HUD-1. How do we put all of that together? And I've already told you that the seller is responsible, and that these funds could be, the seller is responsible for the repairs, but they can transfer that responsibility to you and you sign off. Now, the title company might have somewhat of an issue of who they give the check to and how much it is. And we could get into more details later. This is part one of getting control of the property, and I hope that you have enjoyed this. And I want you to join me now. I want you to join in to continue. And let me say this, for those of you who are listening, our prices are very, very affordable, and they're very reasonable. And we would like for you to join us. If there's any reason that you cannot join us, then remember this, that DAR have a luncheon every third Thursday throughout the entire year of 2020. And you can join DAR and be part of us. Thank you so very much. Herb Strather. I got to teach a class now. Signing on. See you later.